Hey there, welcome back to another video. I am still Renona, and we're still doing another video of what is your true ghost story. So here we go. These are supposedly people's true experiences with paranormal, ghost, or weird, or whatever you want to call it. But here we go. First story. My mom was one of six girls. When she was born, she was premature, and in 1951, at 28 weeks old, survival was next to none. My grandmother looked after the older ones. My granddad worked down in the pit for 12 hours a day, neck deep in water, then would walk to the hospital to visit my mom, walk back home and have a couple of hours kip, then rinse and repeat. Mom, obviously, pulled through. While the other five vibed for my grandmother's attention, Mom became Daddy's biggest daddy's girl, as she was his shadow. My granddad died in 1981. He was only 70 years old. He had suffered traumatic head injuries from a mining shaft beam that collapsed on his head, and he left with 3 shunts in his head to drain fluid and had great mal seizures. When he passed away, I can remember, I was 5, Mom sat on a chair, wrapped in a tartan blanket. She didn't move for months. She just sat there. My dad said, just leave her alone. She just needs some space. I was terrified that I'd never get my mom back. 8 years later, I had this dream. So you know that when you have dreams, the floor is on the ceiling is on the floors, doors are sideways, etc. Nothing at all like this in real life. Well, in this dream, it was so detailed. Patterns on the sofa, bedding, curtains, everything was spot on, especially a ballerina figurine my mom had on her bedroom windowsill. The ballerina had to point her leg towards the upstairs door, bedroom door. So getting to it, in this dream, me and my sister had sit downstairs, and Mom said, "Your granddad is upstairs, and he wants to see you." I said, "Tell him to come here," thinking she meant my other granddad. Mom said it wasn't him, but the other granddad, and he was too weak to come down. So we went up. My sister cowered in the bedroom door, and the sheets were flat, and nobody was there. I noticed that the ballerina figurine had pointed her foot towards the outside of the window, not towards the door. The intricate pattern on the bed sheets were exactly right. And like a body of wind under the blankets, there was my granddad, laid in bed. I told him I loved him. I asked what heaven was like. He told me I don't remember. Apparently this is common. Then he started to fade in and out. My mom, who was called Jean, told me he's got to go now. He said how much he loved us, and then he said to tell my mom, "I love you, Jeannie." When I woke, I walked to my parents' bedroom, and the ballerina figurine was still facing the wrong way, pointing to outside the window instead of towards the bedroom door. Because of my mom's breakdown, I kept the dream to myself for years. One day we got chatting about my granddad, and I felt like it was okay to mention the dream. Mom was like, "Yeah, yeah, oh, that's lovely," until I said, as he was fading out, he said, "I love you, Jeannie." My mom burst into tears. It scared me, thinking, oh God, I've put her back into the breakdown. Mom said, "That name has just been between me and my dad." "How do you know that? That was just between us." I said, "That's what he called you." Clarification done, and the ballerina played her part. He comes to visit now from time to time. He used to smoke a pipe, and often you can smell it in the air, and he stands between my 2 sofas. If you hold your hand out, the air gets thick, like he was holding your hand. I had his pipe smoke in my old house, in the middle of my living room. Mom was there one day, and I said, "Come and stand on this spot." Mom did, and a tear rolled down her face as she said, "Hello, Dad." That's pretty sweet. My house, when I was a child, was built in the 1900s, maybe before that. A terraced house on one of the many streets used by many that worked in Horwich, Aikio, Ioko Works, which closed in 1986. I lived in that house from 1990 to 2000, and I don't know how old I was when I had my first encounter with the ghost. I could hear walking up and down the stairs and down the hall to mine and my brother's bedrooms, which was the main bedroom. It was because it was bigger. I would still remember it all now, clear as anything. He was called Max and was about 5'8" or so. He told me he used to work on the Ioko, yeah, works, and something about a fire. I would see him for a couple of years, as he always was in the back room, Mom and Dad's room, hiding under the bed. He wasn't a bad ghost. I told my cousin, who was about the same age as me, and she freaked out. She wouldn't sleep over, so I think I told him to leave us, as I didn't want to see him after that. I was about 7 or 8 years old. The strangest part about this was, as I was speaking to a friend in high school whose grandparents lived at the bottom of my street, and she told them about Max, and they confirmed he used to live there and died there due to a fire. I have other things as well, from what I remember, but they are also as clear as day. In 2013, I worked as a banker at a small cafe in central Arizona called the Wild Iris. It's still in business. It was a super old building and had a reputation for being haunted among staff. During my first month, I was scheduled one night after close with two other coworkers to dust the air ducts. We were instructed to throw tarps over everything so that dust wouldn't dirty the workspace. I was in the bakery, which was essentially a tiny workspace connected to the coffee area. I threw a large tarp over one of the rolling speed tracks, a tall, portable shelving unit that was filled with empty squeeze bottles for caramel and chocolate sauces. Once I got to the top of my stepladder to begin dusting, I noticed a single squeeze bottle sitting on top of the tarp. There was no storage above the speed rack, so I had no idea how that bottle managed to get on top of the tarp that I had just thrown over it. I was so baffled, and so were my coworkers. However, I wasn't convinced that it was a ghost. The next night, I was scheduled and told everyone about my experience. I remember feeling compelled to have my own experience and felt energetically open to invite something paranormal to happen. Eventually, it was just me and one other coworker, the barista, closing the shop. We spent all night discussing paranormal stories and really creeping ourselves out. It got to the point where I had to stop talking about things with her because I was so unnerved by the energy we were stirring up. Shortly thereafter, I bent over to get a trash bag out of the cabinet beneath the sink when I heard a noise from behind and above me. It sounded like a woman's voice, but a combination of a growl and spoken words, and it was textual. I never heard anything like that before. It was like someone was speaking from another dimension, almost staticky. I immediately froze and spent a few seconds trying to logically understand what I had just heard. I knew it wasn't the song playing on the radio, because it was much louder than that. I knew it wasn't my coworker behind me, but after finding no other explanation, I turned around and faced her and said, "What was that noise?" My coworker looked at me and said, "I thought that was you." We both froze in disbelief, and at the time my coworker was a few feet from the left side of the espresso machine, and I was a few feet from the right side. The sound had occurred between us, which would have been right in front of the espresso machine that had several coffee cups stacked on top. After a couple of seconds of just staring at each other, we both noticed something on top of the espresso bar moving and we looked at the same time. One of the cups floated a few inches into the air, wiggling a little bit side to side, then lowering itself back into the cup below, falling slightly to the side. We both looked at each other to confirm what we had just seen, and then ran to the bathroom on the side of the building, laughing hysterically, flooded with adrenaline. I was just so utterly in awe of what had just happened. I remember saying out loud something like, "Okay, I get it now. I believe you." Not the scariest thing ever, but to this day remains the most bizarre and unexplained thing I've ever witnessed. My mom's mom, Grandma, came to me in a dream. My mom was super sick. We were not sure she was going to make it. My Gram came to me in the dream. We were both in an airport or corridor somewhere. She bustled up to me like she was very busy, took my hands in hers, told me Mom was going to be okay, hugged me, and then she bustled off. She was about 45 in my dream. She died, and she died when she was in her 80s of Parkinson's. I woke up from that dream, went to my mom, and told her. We cried. My mom is now in her 80s and playing in her local orchestra. Well, that's good. The house I lived in from 14 to 21 when I moved in with my dad was spooky. An old country house, and the previous owner, before my grandparents got this house, died in the house from falling down the stairs. My sister and I were chit-chatting at the door to her room. There was a set of stairs leading down from the landing where we were talking, which are the stairs mentioned above. I saw something out of the corner of my eye, thinking my dad got home and was trying to scare us, as usual. I saw a shadowy figure peeking around the corner at the bottom and looking up at us just before pulling back and disappearing. I thought I was seeing things until my sister said, "Did you see that too?" We went downstairs, and everything was still locked up tight. No footprints in the snow outside, and no tire marks or anything in the snow either, and it was clear that there wasn't anybody in the house but us. People would come into that house to visit sometimes and tell my dad it felt off, that they didn't belong, and my dad was super hospitable to guests, so it was confusing to him when they refused to visit again. The house just gave off weird vibes, and the entire time I lived there, it got worse when my grandmother, who also lived there, was put in a nursing home where my dad couldn't care for her anymore. The feeling of unease ramped up after she left and immediately passed away in 2013, which I never understood. It just wasn't the man on the stairs, either. My dad's girlfriend thought she saw my dad watching her from the door when she was sleeping and asked him to come back to bed. When he turned and walked to where I was sleeping, she rolled over and saw my dad already in bed with her. The next morning she asked my dad about it and pointed to a picture of my grandfather, who was at the near spitting image of my dad, and mentioned he was standing in the room the night before. My dad was bummed that he'd never seen my father's spirit to this day. So yeah, weird house, but I've been around this stuff forever. We always seemed to live in houses with activity when I was younger, and now nothing. I haven't had an experience in over a decade. I never believed in ghosts until this happened. Around grade 11, I was camping with my friend and his family. My mate and I were in a tent. It was about 2200 in South Africa, hot spring campsite. I needed to pee before going to sleep. He said, "Me too." We walked out to the dirt road that ran along the side of the campsite up into the hot springs. It was a bright, full moon. Most people had gone to bed, but it was just him and I at the bottom section. It was cooler. I had a little river, so I started at the side of my first road. My mate walked a little further down. Once I was done, I turned to walk toward my mate to chat, took a few steps, and looked at my left to the dirt road. I made eye contact with a woman, standing on a rock about 4 meters from me. In that second, after passing through the stage of, "Ah, cool, there resembles a woman's face," to being certain it was a woman's face, I looked away as quickly as I could, but thought, fuck it, I need to confirm this. I looked back and looked at her. She looked to be about 40 years old. I looked at her she had a long black dress, her long black bob cut hair, and her face. Her face, or her expression, is what would basically had me falling over trying to walk away as quickly as possible, like in the movies. As she turned slightly away from me, but her face was all slightly downward facing, and looking slightly under her brow. Her skin was almost looked blue. I thought it must have been the sunlight. I thought back to just how blue it was. Anyway, I got away and repeatedly screamed in lower case, "Gram, Gram, 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 Gram. We need to go now. We need to go," over and over. Climbed back in the tent and heard every fucking sound in the forest that night. I saw her face in my mind for years after that. The moment I think of her face, my blood runs cold. 33 now, and it's still clear in my mind, despite not being really able to see any being able to visually picture people's faces in my head. I see hers perfectly. A friend and I, 12 a.m. in the morning, we were looking for stuff to skate at El Paso High School, and we saw lights flicker upward diagonally, right 4 to 5 stories up to the roof. We got to the other side, and I saw an apparition fall off the roof, disappearing halfway down. I met my other friend and told him what I saw. He said, "Let's get the F out of here." In the car, he told me a girl jumped off the roof in the 1970s. I had seen the apparition before I heard the story. If you Google El Paso High School Ghost Girl, you can see many photos of her appearing. The school was also built on top of an infirmary. It's worth a deep dive. Well, we're going to end this video right there. I hope you have enjoyed it. Maybe doing some more. You never know, probably. But if you don't mind, like, share, subscribe, comment, do all the things, do some of the things, do none of the things. I can't tell you what to do. You're a grown adult, probably. So anyway, thank you for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye. Hello there. So if you like to color, and because I do, I definitely like to color, and I have loved paper dolls since I was a wee lass. I decided to create my own uh, color your own paper dolls. There's 5 books, there's 5 volumes, and they're all lovely and color coordinated because that's just what I like to do. I will warn you now, the formatting leaves something to be desired. It's not great. But first time out trying to do all these, I think it's not bad. Now, the thing is, with all of these, there are 5 dolls, 5 people, 5 girls on each There's a lot of paper dolls, so you can pick and choose which ones you like, which ones you don't like, whatever. And there's different categories. There's, they all have pajamas. They all have, coats and winter wear. They all get to do a little fancy and formal. They get to do some party stuff. There's also a section in there with like careers and jobs with some suggestions of what, each outfit could be for, but, do your own thing, whatever. And there's quite a few everyday, outfits. The thing is, all of these dolls are based on the same model. So if you buy more than one book, they can all fit any and all of the dolls. You can collect all five and use them, cut them out. If you have a child or even an adult or a teenager in your life that likes this kind of stuff, they can color, they can create, and all of them are interchangeable. So it's pretty good value, I think, because I always love doing that. I spent most of my time um, creating my own paper dolls because there just never was enough clothes, and sometimes there was only one paper doll per thing, and she'd have to have a friend or a sister or somebody. I mean, So I combined coloring and really not so great fashion design, as this was one of my passions, but go check it out over on my Amazon page. And if you're interested in that, I'd appreciate you picking up one or two. Anyway, thanks for listening. Bye.